Sherdog.com here with UFC 1 participant Zane Frazier. You're in the back, you're warming up. The first fight goes out to the cage, Gerard Gordeau, Taylor Tooley. When did that hit you, the realization, like, I'm really doing this? I'm really doing a no-holds-barred fight right now?
Well, my wife was catching mitts for me because my coaches were going outside because they got caught up into, excuse me, they got caught up into the spectacle. So I needed to warm up. So my wife was out there, I says, honey, you got to hold mitts for me. So I'm trying to really get warmed up. All of a sudden they rushed in, my coaches run in, they rushed in and they says, it's over, you're up. And then as soon as we walked out, it was just like, you know, it was here. I just took it all in. It was kind of interesting fun. When I got to the cage and I heard that cha-clink, that's when it got a little nervous. I says, uh-oh, now it's too late to turn back. Now it's either sink or swim. Now you have to be like Cortez. There are no more ships. They're burnt. You have to go forward. And the only way out is go through this guy. And that's kind of where I said, okay, now it's showtime. Now it's for real.
Let's talk about the fight. It looked like you'd gotten some kind of mat burn or something like that on your shoulder. You kind of get up and you had like a... No,
what happened was because of the Gracies sold us these wolf stories about how we were going to be fighting on concrete. I was actually in the neighborhood where I went to, a cousin of mine knew a lot of, you know, Crips, I should say, okay? And back then, there was martial arts, was all in the park. And so when I went back to actually get ready for UFC 1, I had to keep a street fighter mentality. And a lot of that was because, you know, I found out I only had 30% of my lung capacity because I went into respiratory failure, so we knew we had to get over quick. So one of the things we did, we went to the neighborhood, and I said, hey man, I need to get back into a street fighter mentality, not a boxing or karate mentality. So what happens is I think I was going to fight one of the guys, because they're the guys that came out of prison, they're boxers that studied jailhouse rock and all this kind of stuff. So these guys were tough guys. Maybe not professional polished guys, but just tough guys. So I'm thinking I'm going to fight one guy. Well, 15 guys jumped on me. And so what wound up happening is that we were on a basketball court. We wound up going from the grass to the basketball court, and I got that scrape on the basketball court because we're thinking that this is what we're going to fight on. So we got to make it as real as possible. And being skin abrasions, that was part of it. So that's where that bruise came from.
You land a couple good rights. You push him against the cage. You land a couple of really good uppercuts. He goes for that weird side headlock. You shuck him off. He lands on all fours. You hit him. He stands up, and then you back away. It looks like you're exhausted.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, what had happened was in that fight, I was doing pretty good, and we're scrambling. And when I got up, all of a sudden, I felt like I was coughing, but I couldn't cough. It was like a wheeze. And I didn't know what it was, and so I thought that I was trying to cough. I was trying to get it out, and I couldn't cough. So my lung, I kept feeling my lungs filling up with oxygen, but I couldn't breathe. So I backed up a little bit. And said, okay, let me just, it's a 5-minute round, okay, let me just go ahead and catch my breath. But I could never catch my breath. So the more time went away, the more my lungs started to feel tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And I think I tried to throw one more right hand, and there was nothing there. And all of a sudden, it felt like somebody had, it felt like my lungs just closed down, and it was just nothing there. And I just collapsed. Later, I find out they rushed me to the hospital, they intubated me, and they found out I had asthma. And I had never known I had asthma. I had never been diagnosed for asthma. I had what they call exercise-induced asthma, and I didn't know that. And so essentially what happened was I had an asthma attack during that fight, and I did not know that. I did not know I had asthma, and that's what subsequently happened. That was a bummer.
You could definitely see that something changes in Kevin when he sees you start to back away. He notices that you're really sucking wind. He comes in, he finishes you, end up against the cage, he stomps you, the towel gets thrown in. You didn't plead your case. Did you have any kind of talk with your seconds before the fight, like, hey, this would be an okay time to throw in a towel?
Well, here's what happened was, we kind of knew, my wife kind of knew because she was there when I went into respiratory failure in February and I almost died. And they put me on so much prednisone that that's the only thing that saved my life. And I was in and out of prednisone. Plus, I had nasal polyps so bad that when I had surgery, I lost 1,200 cc's of blood. So I couldn't breathe out of my nose or my mouth. So my wife kind of knew something, but she didn't know what. because I was kind of dealing with asthma. So when we went back to UCLA Medical Center, they told me this guy only has 30% of his lung capacity. So we didn't tell anybody. So she kind of knew. So, and she had mentioned to me, she says, well, what if you're going to respiratory failure? I said, I don't have respiratory failure. I'm not going to do that. I wasn't thinking, I wasn't listening to her. So at that moment, at the time, the only thing I thought about, and this is what I told her, I put everything, because the Gracies made this a death match. I don't know if they talk about this was going to be a death match, you can fight to the death, and all this kind of crazy nonsense kind of thing. If you can fight with your arm broken, and as long as you don't tap out, you can fight, all that kind of crazy stuff. The only thing I told my wife was this: if I'm going out, let him beat me. But I ain't going to tap out. I ain't going to give up. If I wind up dead in there, I'd wind up dead in there. But that's how I have to go into this fight. So I put all my belongings, we put all our business names, all of my business money accounts, I put it into my wife's name, because at the end of the day, if I live and die, that's just how I'm going to go out. Subsequently, when the towel came in, that's why I didn't tap. I ain't going to tap. You know, you beat me up, whatever. Matter of fact, had they not tapped, had they not thrown in the towel, in my perfect world thinking, there was only 40 seconds left in the round. I think in my mind, I would think I could have made it, but obviously I wouldn't have made it into round two. And so I actually got mad at them for throwing in the towel, because I figured, let him stomp me. He's not hurting me. I've been kicked in the face. I've had 15 guys jump on me. I'm not getting hurt. Just leave me alone and let me fight. But they threw in the towel. And then I can do. They tried to save me, protect me. So
after the fight, were you taken to the hospital, or
yes.
So you didn't go to the after party that they had?
I did. I went to that where they gave me adrenaline, and aprophine, I think it is, and my lungs opened up, and this nurse says, Mr. Frazier, it was funny, she said, sounded like she was from Texas or something. She says, you know, you have asthma, and if you don't take care of it, it's going to kill you. And so I had to get out of the hospital. I wanted to go to the after party.
What was the atmosphere there like at the time? Did you guys feel like you kind of had done something sort of historical?
Yeah, because it was like, man, you know, because see, what had happened was Gold's Gym had sponsored the first UFC. And they said they were never going to sponsor another UFC. So we thought there was never going to be another UFC. We said, hey man, they did this, we did this, nobody did this. And so we started talking about all the guys who were chicken. We said, you know, Mike Tyson wasn't here, and we started calling out all these guys who weren't here. We said, we shouldn't have said this, but we said, where was Alexander Carella? And he was from wrestling. You know, we started going back to, hey man, we're the baddest guys on the planet. So we were kind of basking in that. We started to go back and talking about, you know, how good we were, and because they said this was it. People were horrified when they saw this. They were just completely horrified of this spectacle. So we thought, hey, they're never going to have another one. This is going to be the only one. We're going to be in the record books forever. And so we were just thinking about it, man. And then I remember Ken Shamrock, and looked at it, I said, Ken, that was fun. He goes, I know. He goes, man, I wish they have another one, man. You think they'll have another one? So we started hoping they would have another one. And, you know, that's kind of how the atmosphere was. We were just excited. It was fun. I think that a lot of guys had relief. And then we started to talk about the questions. We now had answers to questions that we've been asking ourselves. Who's actually better? And I have to admit, Royce was better. The Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brought a strategy to one-on-one fighting that we had not seen before. And it was very unique. And I respected it, and I honored it, because I says, man, that's slick how they do that. That's, you know, all these kind of things. So we kind of actually, you know, was excited about about what the performance that we all gave.